Call the meeting to order. Let the record show that this is a special city council meeting workshop. The press has been duly notified. Bueller. And all members of council are present. Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Council is going to remain standing for a moment of silence. Please feel free to do so if you want. If not, you don't have to. Thank you. Item number 1 on the agenda is the budget workshop. And if anybody wants to skip to item number 2, I'm all for it. Budget workshop, City Manager Charlie Funderburk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We've passed out slides that Tim will be showing as we are aired live and for the recording. They will be on the screens in case staff or any members of the public join us and want to follow along. We'll start with our events budget. The request for FY 16-17.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a total of anticipated expenditures and a total of anticipated revenues for the next year? Did you,
That's what's on your,
the combined, I mean, the whole thing, not by each event,
oh,
not by each
for the
department?
entire shebang?
Just curious.
I bet Bob can get it for you
Well,
as we
don't
go
kill
through
yourself.
this.
Okay, I'm just
He's
curious.
quite the mathematician.
And he's like, why are you asking that? Don't worry about it.
I'm not. I'm
Okay.
just curious, trying to figure it out.
Trying to see if revenues exceed expenses, just as a general matter, and by how much?
I can tell you they do across the board because we're in the positive in each fund.
I know. It's all right, I'll get
Good.
it later.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but I don't need it now, because I want to
Alright.
know what we did the past year and whatever.
Okay.
Just, you know, sometimes seeing the big picture is,
Be glad to get
when you
that
do all
for
the
you.
little pictures, it all looks rosy. Then you see the big picture, and you're like, gee
And
whiz.
it's a big rose bush.
Yeah, it's like my, credit and debit in my checking account. Damn, I really didn't make, yeah. Okay, no more questions.
Your revenue for your community events, you've got modest interest income of $900. Community events at $6,000. Fall festival vendors at $1,300. Your golf tournament at $8,000. That's your participation fees for folks that sign up for the Mayor's Cup. And sponsorships that we bring in at $14,626. And as we get into general fund later this evening, you'll see sponsorships under recreation there for $10,000. So it's a total of a little over $24,000 in sponsorships that we bring in for everything. And then a transfer from hospitality tax of $42,244 for a grand total of $73,070. On your expenditures, really not a whole lot of changes here. $25,000 for July 4th, Fall Festival at $10,000, Holiday Festival at $500, concerts at $16,000, the Mayor's Cup golf expenses at $9,950, holiday lighting at $10,000, and senior games at $1,620, balancing that out at $73,070. The chart that we've got on the screen now it just kind of shows you a different way of looking at it from a graphic standpoint. Obviously, July 4th, with all that goes into that, makes up the largest percentage at 34%. Concerts that we do May, June, August, and September at 22%. Fall Festival at 14%, the holiday lighting, and these are the Christmas lights and decorations and whatnot that our maintenance staff put out. And then your Mayor's Cup at 13%, the senior games at 2%. And that's just to give you a different way of looking at the allocation of your expenses.
So the
And with
holiday
that,
lighting is
questions?
all the trees,
That's
lighting of
correct.
all the trees, all of that stuff.
Replacement,
It's just
replacing
not the one day, it's the
that's correct.
entire-
Your holiday festival is the $500, and then your holiday lighting is the replacing the strands of lights in the median and things like that.
So it looks like we saved a significant amount this year, or are you still?
On holiday lighting.
fees?
Actually, we will have we do have an invoice that'll be coming in that'll be paid in the next month, where we took advantage of some after Christmas sales to get ready for the coming year and getting things a little bit better price. So that invoice will be forthcoming. It doesn't show in your year-to-date at this point. Any other questions on the events budget?
I guess just the only other one was the concert expense.
Yes, ma'am. That one, if you'll recall, we did the Eddie Z's Concert for Kidneys. So it was an extra show, but we did have a sponsor that paid for the majority of that. And that's why that expense line item is higher this year than than normal. But the revenues we did bring in additional revenues to support that.
We also had the one-time expense for the electrical outlets for the food trucks as well.
Correct. Yes. Thank you, Joey.
Okay.
Any other questions? We move on.
All right. Hospitality tax, and council, we updated the Dropbox today, because as Bob and I were finalizing this, we've given you a printout. We have a new expense in there that we did this year. We have, yes, we got the payment. And we just missed it before we sent this out, but we did capture it in what you have there, and that's the Rundy Park lights. Other than that, it's the same that you saw previously. So you've got H-tax of, do what?
Still in there?
Well, after we updated, so that's the second version of the packet that you're seeing now.
Okay.
So your total revenue at $165,000. We're anticipating finishing this year, based on where we are year to date, at about 162, 163. Shore Club is off to a fantastic start, at least from an HTAC standpoint. Talking with John Weinbrenner, he's getting a lot of positive feedback, getting some constructive criticism, things that he's taken under consideration, but doing a really good job. So, and then we've seen an uptick, obviously, with TKK Deli doing quite well over there. So HTAX is continuing to creep up each year. On your expenditures, event salaries, the state law allows us as it regards to what they control, or they specify what we can and cannot spend our hospitality tax dollars on. But staff that work events that bring folks in from outside, such as July 4th, our concerts, Fall Festival, when we have to add staff to those, whether it be public safety or maintenance, we are able to pay for the hours that they're working there out of this fund. So $7,000 there. Marketing at $5,000 when we're pushing out our events on Facebook, and these are nominal fees where we can boost the post, get more people engaged and excited about our events, as well as other things that we do, the lapel pins and keychains and things like that residents have enjoyed purchasing. Some giveaways for different things when the schools come to visit and things like that. So transfer to the events. You just saw that number, the $42,244. Your payment on the Rundy Park lights at $24,754. Maintenance and repairs, and that's for this facility as well as the exterior of the clubhouse. Now, the reason for the big jump there is we would like to be able to put a roof awning type structure on the upper veranda on the backside of the Glennon Center. Right now, there's no roof structure off of the back. If council recalls, last year we replaced the double doors on the backside and put them with single doors with the side lights and put them as steel, because when the driving rain hit, it was just tearing the doors up. Rain was getting inside the building. And now the new doors are starting to take some damage from the driving rain. So talking with contractors, we do have a quote on it. Obviously, for that amount, we will be taking bids on if council does approve the budget. But it's about a $40,000 expense to put a roof off of the back of the Glennon Center, off of that veranda. And really make it a lot more usable for functions and everything, give you some shade and things of that nature. So that's what the big ramp up is there on that particular line item. And then you're left with a little over, right around $5,000. again, balancing that, that fund at $165,000.
How
And again,
large
there's
is
your
the roof?
breakdown. It spans
It goes
from the staircase to the
Right.
little,
but does it go from the building to the?
to the rail.
to-
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Building to rail, yes, sir.
But it doesn't include the big open outside dining?
In between the two buildings, no.
The big outside dining, outside the
Oh,
bar?
you talking about on the deck?
Yeah.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. And it's my understanding that I think John is about to install some bistro lighting out there to brighten it up a little bit more, make it a little easier to see at night.
I've been thinking about doing a screened in kind of porch there, screening that whole thing in.
Like,
To-
okay.
Huh?
Not,
Exactly. Thinking about it.
okay.
Any, again, I've got
That's nice.
just a graphic representation of your expenses on the screen. It's in your handouts. Any questions on hospitality tax revenues or expenditures there?
No, I'm so glad we have it.
I do want to point out,
help.
why did we cap it at 81,000 on our expenses? Again, the state does allow us to, spend up to 50% of the actual amount collected the previous year on maintenance repair items to tourism-related, facilities, like this would be, or the golf course. So that's where the magic 81,000 came from, is it would be 50% of what we should be collecting this year of the 162,000.
Okey-dokey.
Next.
Okay. Stormwater, based on the number of ERUs, both commercial and residential, we're figuring on approximately $480,000 in stormwater fees coming in the next fiscal year. Your expenditures that get applied, that would be applied towards that, personnel at $217,633. That represents approximately 25% of our maintenance staff's salaries. The remainder of it is in the public works side. It's just an allocation of percentages based on the work that they do throughout the year. So it's not that we have a standalone stormwater department. This is a percentage of the public works department's salaries.
And the salaries, and I think we see this as we go through almost every account. There are increases across the board in salary and wages.
The salaries and wages across the board factor in the cost of living increase that the state has notified us of, and
Which is what?
2%.
It's gonna be 2.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And then it does envision staff being eligible for up to a 2% merit based on their evaluations. Not everybody will get a full 2% on the merit, but it is based off of their annual evaluations.
So you're basically plugged 4%
Yes, ma'am.
increase across the board.
For the most part, there were a couple of areas, and it was in
Well, some where
general
you're
fund.
doing new hires too.
None in this area? Well,
No,
no,
not
it's in
here.
Public Works.
Yeah, not,
Correct.
yeah.
The only place where we didn't actually do just a 4% is in public safety. When we looked at our compensation study, we had a number of our patrol officers and a number of our firefighters that were actually below the minimum of their pay range. So what this budget envisions, if council does adopt it, is getting those folks up to the minimum of their pay range. So to try to utilizing that compensation study that we had done in 2015.
Just a year ago.
What's your
a
turnover
little over a
rate
year
right
ago.
now?
Right now, we're actually doing really well. Hats off to both Chief Szymanski as well as Chief Parker. Really not seeing a whole lot of turnover, and the turnover that we have had, some of it was because of discipline. Some of it was because of folks just moving out of the area. But as far as leaving us to go to another local department, really have curtailed that over the last 2-3 years. And hats off to those guys for doing a bang-up job and keeping the morale up and doing good things in those departments.
It also is the same in the city office. You don't have much turnover at
That is
all.
correct. We have
I
had,
guess you're doing a good job.
Yeah, I'd say the operations does seem more stable now. I'm not seeing as many new faces, so that's good.
Yes. And when we don't have as many new faces, it improves our efficiencies, and we're able to get things done a lot
Oh, sure.
faster, so.
Okay,
What's the
sorry.
stormwater rate? Is it?
It's still the 108.
108
Same as this year.
per ERU.
Yep.
And
So,
that's still being collected by
county, yes, sir,
county?
Yes.
on the
So
tax
why
bills.
do we have a stormwater delinquency in there of $976 if the county's got?
So that's from previous years.
Well, that one, he's talking about the one in the middle for this year,
Yeah, it says
that we
year-to-date.
collected, 976,
July 8th,
because of delinquent payments on taxes.
Oh,
delinquent payments on taxes, okay.
Mhm.
And then the penalties are the same thing?
That's
because-
correct.
okay. All right,
That's
thank you.
correct. They're nominal amounts, which is why we don't program them in as actual revenue.
Right,
I wouldn't have thought that. I don't know why, but I wouldn't have.
but it makes perfect
Yeah, it
sense.
does.
Yeah.
Moving on, you've got debt payments of $73,986. That's on the leaf truck, as well as the bond payment, which is about to retire. Bob, if you could pull that out as I continue on. And then the rest of your operations and maintenance at $188,381. I'll skip that graph, and let's just go to some of the highlights. You've got over $100,000 in capital projects, repairs. Most of those, I would say the vast majority of those are occurring in traditional TGK, where old galvanized steel pipe that's rusted out and things like that. So a lot of what we're doing is in traditional TGK in the way of repairs to storm sewer systems, replacing the old galvanized pipes, repairing old outfalls, repairing inlets, things of that nature. We're also, we need to replace the GPS handheld units that our maintenance staff use. When they go around on Monday, they're picking up the bagged items and they're marking where the brush piles are. Those things have served us very, very well. We've gone from 4.5 days of brush collection to 2.5 days of brush and bag collection by being able to mark those things on Monday mornings. So it's definitely they've definitely paid for themselves from an efficiency standpoint, allowing our staff to get to other projects and things about the city. So those are starting to wear out a little bit, and it's time to get those replaced. So that's pretty much your budget highlights on your on the stormwater
Charlie,
budget.
The leaf truck, this is the last payment.
Okay,
Last
so
payment.
16, 17 will be the final payment on leaf truck. What about the bond, Bob?
The bond is 2018, 17, 18, so we have
Okay.
2 more payments.
So we'll get 2 more payments on that after this year.
You mentioned operations. Is this when I can ask a question about operations?
Yes, ma'am,
Okay.
absolutely.
No.
I noticed in the CIP, between the draft and the final, the backhoe doubled in price, yet you're still getting one new one. So is it we just underestimated the capacity needed for it? And that's why the price increased so much? We went from 48 to 96, and they're both still one and still new.
Tim? Do you have a moment to come out, please?
Sorry.
There you go.
She asked you a question.
Great, what was the question?
Talk about the backhoe.
Hi, Tim, sorry.
She said from the draft to the final on the CIP, the backhoe price went from 48 to 96. Did we combine, was it spread across 2 and then we combined to 1, or?
We got a current price on it, and we priced a 4-wheel drive with a complete cab, so we can use it for a winter weather,
Okay, so you
for a
upgraded.
storm removal, instead of an open-air cab.
Okay.
And those were the prices that came back.
Wow.
But that doesn't appear in the budget for this year.
Yeah, I saw the lease was going to be, was going to be over a certain amount of time period.
Correct.
So it is still going to start in 2017, the first payment?
Well, if council adopts it as part of the 17-18 budget, when we get there,
Yeah,
then that's when it would
Okay.
potentially start, yes, ma'am.
All right, thank
But
you.
no new equipment in stormwater requested for 16, 17.
Wowie.
Any other questions on stormwater budget? Oops, sorry, turn my mic off. Everybody good there? Okay.
Beach and Swim Center.
The
96.
next enterprise fund that you have here is the Beach and Swim Center. Memberships at $170,000 in revenue, club rentals at $2,500. other revenue, which is swim team, swimming lessons, things of that nature, at $28,705, bringing your total revenues to $201,205.
Didn't go up for as much as it went down.
And I think
Yes.
we just
Budget.
increased the cost for membership. Is that where we're seeing
We did a price increase for the current fiscal year, and we also backed up the early bird rate to the end of April instead of the 1st of April. And that hurt. That's why you see we're a little under on revenues. We'll still get some revenues in. Whether we'll reach all the way to the 175, probably not. We'll get close by the end of the year. We typically start getting, as folks are new, moving into the area prior to the school year, we'll still get a few more. I think we brought in probably about $6,000 last year between mid-July and middle of first part of September. So
How many members do we have?
640.
And what's our max capacity or targeted?
you can put 315, I think, in the pool, and a total around the pool deck at 715, which would count pool deck and in the water. Now, how that equates to our memberships,
Yeah.
it really depends, because we've got a lot of senior singles, we've got a lot of, grandparent passes, things like that. I mean, so, some families, it's just 3 of them, some families, it's 8 of them, so.
Yeah, I mean, I even noticed the guest passes, speaking of that. So do we increase how many they get in their package, and that's why less were purchased?
We didn't increase it, but typically we don't start selling guest passes until the latter part of the year, because they use their
run
free
out.
ones during the
Okay.
beginning, and then they start purchasing. Usually end of July, first part of August, they start spending on the guest passes.
I've heard a lot of positive feedback about the Beach and Swim Club, so I just
Good.
was curious about some of these decreases, since I've heard only positive things.
I think our total numbers aren't really down that
It's
much.
a type
It's
of
just,
membership too. It's a
yeah.
type of membership.
Okay.
How many do we have last year? Do you remember?
It was at the same number, wasn't it, Joey? 640?
640, 645, somewhere around there.
I
Yeah.
think,
I want to say off the top of my head is around 650, but I really think our biggest issue was that month that we would have captured the non-early bird price was removed when we extended the early bird, which is probably some of the deficiencies.
Do we know how much we, quote, lost by doing that? What do we leave on the table? I mean, roughly, don't.
I'm gonna guess we lost about $5,000, almost
Okay.
6,000. But I estimate we're gonna get 170 this year, and we estimated 175.9 in the budget, so I guess we lost about 5,900. That's my guess right now.
Okay.
Thanks.
Move over into your expenditures. Personnel makes up $70,303, and then the rest goes towards operation and maintenance of $130,225. In that, you do have the payment for the improvements that we did this year, as far as resurfacing the pool, expanding the pool deck. So we've got the payments for that programmed into here. Not anticipating any new stuff this year. We've tackled a lot over the last 4 or 5 years. In 17, 18, you'll probably see requests to replace the winter cover. We'll get through this winter, and that'll probably be it for that one. I think it's the second one that we've had, and we've had the facility for 15 years.
Yeah.
So they
Sounds
hold up
good.
pretty good.
Yeah.
We're getting a lot of bang out of them, so a lot of mileage. I realize that's a little brief on the expenditures, but be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Yes, sir.
The swim team.
Yes, sir.
Um,
Why the reduction?
yeah.
They have capped the number of swimmers at 200, and that was because basically every other team we have only has about 75. And last year, we had about 240 to 250 swimmers, and it's just too much. So now they had to make the decision. They really couldn't handle that many, so they've capped it at 200.
Huh. Well, that's interesting, because we increased the rates for the swim team,
Mhm.
but they've capped the quantity, so it looks like we're still doing fine then,
Yes,
considering
they're-
we've
they
got
are-
a cap.
Absolutely covering their expenses 100%, as well as expenses incurred by the city in regards to the pool. You can see that the revenues are more so than what the expenditures are for
Yeah.
them.
3,500.
And then on the insurance, can we just correct that year-to-date total number, please?
Yes, it's got a decimal place in there and not a comma. We can clean that up. Not a problem. Anything else on Beach and Swim Center?
Next.
Utilities. Okay. Tap fees at $405,434. You can see a note on the packets that you received. 103 of those are from Lake Ridge, and I'm not sure, David and Ryan, if y'all are familiar with this, but in the development agreement with Lake Ridge, the developer agreed on tap fees at $3,878. Normal tap fees are $2,750. So, yeah, the builders were paying a higher rate on the tap fees in Lake Ridge because the developer paid for the cost of the sewer line going to Rock Hill. So as we collect the $3,878, we refund that back to, we collect it from the builder and then refund it back to the developer. But the last 115, 115 or 117?
117.
117. The last 117 taps, we actually get to keep at the $3,878 rate. We have now reached that point with Lake Ridge. We've got our final tap fee check going back to the developer next week.
Good.
Yes.
So it's envisioning collecting 103 taps in next fiscal year at that $3,878, plus nominal amount of taps coming from Cameron Creek. Did not program or envision any taps coming from River Falls or any of the other developments. So we stuck with what's happening now. Not what may happen next year. So that's where your 405, 434 comes from. Irrigation tap fees at $16,000. That's only 80 irrigation meters. And based on what we got today, Bob, we're going to probably be all over that number this year.
We're up to 25,000 as of today.
Right. So
That year-to-date figure changes.
people are jumping on the irrigation tap fees, which are good. Putting those irrigation meters in. Your water revenue at $1,940,539. Your sewer revenue at $1,935,313. Your water activation, this is new customers, whether they've moved into a resale home or they're moving into a newly constructed home, at $15,000. And those water activation fees are $150 a piece. So it kind of gives you an idea of what we typically see. It doesn't mean we've got that many new homes. It's just that much changeover, through the year. Bulk of it is new homes, but a lot of it's resales where they've got to come in and activate their new accounts. And then other revenue at $10,530, which is your reconnect fees and your just miscellaneous revenues, return check fees, things like that, that come through. So gives you a total revenues of $4,322,822 on your utilities. Yes, ma'am.
$150 to activate service?
100 of that is refundable or is credited back to the account after 1 year's good service.
Thank you. 'Cause that's
You've got-
steep. That's a
You've got a $50 admin fee for setting it up, and then you've got a $100 basically deposit. And if you pay your bills on time, for 12 months, then you get a credit back to the account.
Okay.
Your utility expenditures, personnel at $1,038,153, as you can see from the note in the packet. That does envision 3 new hires. Your operation and maintenance at $1,880,162. Your debt service, which is the debt payment on the bond, and that bond is the sewer line going to Rock.
It's the SRF.
No. The bond is on the acquisition and what was the other one? It was the bond that we had on the sewer line. Developer paid for part, we had to pay for part. So you've got acquisition and the sewer line to Rock Hill is one bond, and then your SRF payments is what makes up your debt service at $739,750. Your lease payments, these are existing payments on maintenance trucks, as well as the Wi-Fi meters that we now have, with 1,300 meters of the 3,600 in the ground.
I got one.
We're rocking and rolling there, and it's going quite nicely. Your capital outlay, this is requested for new equipment. That is an upgrade to the SCADA system on the booster pumps so that our folks can monitor them remotely and not have to go out to the booster pumps. Booster pumps help keep the water towers full. So being able to, get those alerts and see what's going on and make adjustments remotely could be key. Definitely could be key. It also envisions an equipment trailer, hauling around necessary equipment instead of having to rent things like that, as well as additional maintenance vehicles so that we don't have to pile 4 guys into one truck. We can send people 4 different directions to get more done and be a lot more efficient. Again, that makes up $46,782. And then a fire hydrant project. There are 8 hydrants that have been or 8 locations have been identified for in traditional TGK where we need a hydrant or a hydrant needs to be located to. This is based on current pricing, $248,000 to try to get those done in this upcoming fiscal year, giving you total expenditures of $4,142,855, which means you've got a fund balance to the good of $179,937 in utilities. Probably the best I have seen since in the 16 years we've been running a utility department. And it definitely helps us hit that 1.2 to 1 debt service coverage that we're required to meet in our master bond ordinance.
2 things I want to discuss. One is the hydrant project.
Okay.
Why can't we do that with this budget that we're currently in, and then from the general fund, and then have it paid back at the end of next year to the general fund as $248,000. This way we get the hydrants to the residents faster, as opposed to waiting for the budget year to get them in. And the other thing Dave and I were talking about is the water tower.
Yes,
That's
sir.
over here. That's chipping away. It's not representing what we think the city should represent. And I think I heard a cost of about 80 grand. No.
You didn't. That was 100 plus to repaint. Come on, Philip.
Oh,
It's your
Philip.
budget, buddy. We have updated quotes as
Okay.
of today, I believe,
Yes, yesterday.
yesterday.
Talked with contractors, talked with the paint manufacturer. They come out, done some core samples on that tank at the, just right outside. They can do a 2-coat overcoat of what's there now, but there's no guarantee that it will actually adhere, and then with the additional weight of the paint that's on there, it not be back in the same condition in 2 or 3 years. That was a cost of $40,000.
Okay.
To completely take it down to bare metal, they would have to curtain the whole thing to keep all those particles because it is lead paint. That's $100,000 in itself. To go back with a 3-coat system, total price to do that is anywhere between $275,000 to $325,000.
Holy moly.
God.
I think we got a Boy Scout project.
Dangle the Eagle Scouts.
But for the lead exposure.
That's a quote
Holy
from one
cow.
contractor.
That's insane.
Okay. But at some point, we're gonna have to do it.
Yeah.
All right, it's gonna have to get done. So how do we plan for it so that we're not taking a hit of $325,000 in 1 year?
I've talked with a local.
And I'm sorry, when do they suggest we do that.
For that price, they want us
Right
to do
now,
it right
other
now,
than-
but,
Physically looking bad, it's not in that bad of a condition.
Okay.
In other words, there's no known corrosion that would cause any effect to the water inside the tank, because the inside has a coating as well.
Okay.
But they do recommend, DHEC actually wanted us to do it this year, but they will recommend having it done in the next 2 years. I have spoke with a vendor that is used in this part of the area. He's come up with a plan to spread that cost out over 5 years in a maintenance agreement, but that's something that I would need to discuss with Charlie and then bring the proposal to you all.
That's that one vendor? Well, obviously, we're gonna go to other vendors, right?
Right.
Correct.
well, obviously,
Oh, yes.
we don't
The
have a
paint-
choice
the
anyway,
paint-
but.
The paint manufacturer, I had him come out, that's all he does is sell paint for this type of applications all over the southeast, United States. And he is the one who give me the price range between $275 and $325. The vendor come back that I went to for a quote, give me a quote of actually $275,000.
And that's over a 5-year payment process.
He can do that.
So,
over 5
so
years.
theoretically, we could do it tomorrow and then pay for it over 5 years, the $325,000 over 5 years. What's the, well, you can't answer that question. I was gonna say, what's the interest rate on the 325?
Well,
We don't
I'm
know
sure we're
that.
paying
Yeah, yeah.
70,000 a year. If it's 325,
correct.
70,000, probably a bit less than that because of interest rates would be low,
Right.
but no more than 70 probably.
How long
If-
did the paint manufacturer say this new job will last?
If they take it down to bare metal and then coat it like it's supposed to be, anywhere between 20 to 30 years.
Okay.
Well,
And that's just a plain
little bit
Jane.
better.
We were talking about
Just
having a
paint
nice
it.
logo or a nice paint, something really cool.
Golf ball.
A golf ball or,
Plain Jane,
Fine.
one color would be $275
Yeah.
of the, according to quote. Other colors, anywhere between 50 to 60.
so having the mayor's picture up there was gonna be,
Well, that would bring it way down because.
okay, well then it might be worth it.
But you know what? There'll be a place for all the pigeons to go. All right.
Mayor, if I can, if we can, you've brought up two points here. If we can go to the hydrants. You know, as you had asked me earlier, and Bob and I have been talking about this, if council wanted to do that, we absolutely could. You would need to have a motion, vote on it, and then we would get it out for bid. Probably get bids back in probably by end of August. First part of September. The longer we can give contractors like this to put their numbers together, usually the sharper their pencils get and the better the numbers get. To where we could get this thing going, you can make a motion, or somebody, if they want, if council so chose, transfer that money from general fund reserves. You've got approximately 3.2,
3.4 right now.
3.4 in your general fund reserves. As Bob and I were talking, even again today, it actually would help TCUD if you did it that way, because TCUD wouldn't have to pay the full 248 back at once. It would help it from a cash flow standpoint. We would be able to break that 248 across 12 months, transferring funds back into the general fund reserves to repay that short-term loan, so to speak. It would definitely assist TCUD with cash flow.
Why don't we put that on the August?
Well, I think I'm gonna make a motion that we instruct the city manager to put a bid out to get the 8 hydrants that we need, and have a quote back to us ASAP.
All right, I'll second
And
that.
if those,
Oh,
if
okay.
those quotes do not exceed the $248,000 that you have mentioned here, proceed to replace the hydrants.
Okay, so
That is
as
my
Sylvia's catching this, I just want to make sure I'm clear. So the motion is for us to put it out for bid,
Correct.
and if the bids do not exceed the 248, to use general fund reserve funds to fund it, and then refund it out of 16, 17
TCUD.
TCUD
Correct.
back to. Sylvia, you got that? Okay.
And just
Look,
real
the
quick-
number just
yeah.
keeps going up. Well, that's
Yeah.
my motion. Do we have a
Yeah,
second?
just, yes. I heard
Second.
a second
I
here
already seconded.
But I was curious, how did you get the 248? Is it like a recent number that you
Yes,
received?
Joel Wood, our engineer, because of, we've had so many bids now with the SRF stuff and things like that, looking at their price per linear foot, I mean, because ductile iron pipe is ductile iron pipe. It's just a matter of whether you run water through it or you run sewer through it. So using current, very recent quotes that we had gotten from a per linear foot standpoint, as well as talking with our vendors on the American Darling hydrants, and the length of pipes and the valves and everything that goes with it, he was able to put together a pretty accurate quote that also included a contingency figure to come up with that 248. Believe me, I called him a liar when he gave it to me, because I think when we first started looking at this 5 years ago,
was
6 years ago, it's a hundred,
$150,000.
yeah, it was about 110, 150, and now you're at 248.
It's
So,
the number just keeps growing.
Yeah, I just
and-
want to
and it
make
needs to get
sure
done.
it doesn't come back at even higher, and then we got to put it off further. That's the only reason why I asked, yeah. That's great.
understood.
So that's my motion. We have a second by David O'Neill. Any other discussion? Call the question. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No? Unanimous. Now, water tower.
If you can give me some time with Philip, we can talk through some contractors. I want to talk with this contractor. I also will have Andy Smith from BB&T. We may be able to get better financing terms through them versus doing a 5-year with this, potentially. You know,
Please get at least 3 bids.
Yeah.
oh, yeah,
He
no,
has
we're
to.
not,
He has to.
not, yes, for this amount,
Legally, he
no,
has
we'll put this out for bid. It won't just be getting 3 quotes. For this amount of money,
supposed to
we'll
get
put it
more
out for bid. I really have no clue how many folks there are out there that do this line of work.
think too
We
many.
can reach out to City of Rock Hill. I know they just had 2 or 3 of their water towers repainted in the last 3 years, and see who those contractors were. But yeah, well, let us work on tightening up some of the pricing, getting some more quotes or bids on it. Circle back around with council before the end of the calendar year.
Yeah, it's fine.
Um,
Whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Just leave it at that.
Because you're, more than likely, if you want to do this now, you're probably looking at the same type situation, or depending on the financing. But from a financing term, spreading it out over a few years, as you can see, we've got what do we got in our reserve for TCUD now? 250.
What we can do here, if it's done in January of 2017, the payment might not occur until 17, 18.
Right,
All right, so get back to us in,
Yes, sir.
November, December with.
absolutely. Be glad to.
And especially if we can do it like something really cool of a paint job.
We
Yeah.
will look at,
Options would be nice.
if
Yeah.
council is good with, dressing it up a little,
I'm
other than
not-
just.
Well, I'll wait until I see the
I wanna know the
pricing.
price.
I'm not spending
Understood.
$1 more to make it
Yeah.
jazzy.
I mean,
It
I'm
just
thinking
needs
an
to be
employee
safe and
salary.
neat,
Yeah.
so.
Okay.
Speaking
We
of
will,
that,
we can price it both ways.
speaking of that,
Yes.
3 new employees,
Yes, sir.
what do you need those for?
To maintain the system properly. Right now, we are
Knew
like
this
that
was gonna
properly word.
happen.
95 to 98% reactive. I would like to eventually get to a point where we're proactive. That way TCUD 1 doesn't fall into the state that TCUD 2 is in now, and us having to spend $6.8 million trying to get it back to where it needs to be.
Let me ask this question. As things are improving, I hope, in TCUD 2, and we're not responding to as many SSOs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, might we not have manpower, current manpower available to then tend to the more mundane, regular activities as opposed to?
We still have to do maintenance issues, maintenance items in order to maintain even what's being done now. We have 32 lift stations. That's a full-time job for 2 men to maintain those weekly.
Let me ask a different question. Charlie, remind me, how many hires, if any, have we had since we bought the system, so in the last year or so?
What's your head count?
Because obviously you had more work to do based on that.
Is that count, Shania, Leslie? No. We have 12 full-time employees. So we had 2 prior to acquiring TCUD 2. But that's really kind of a misnomer because there are often times that folks from Public Works would chip in and help out. Yeah, our mechanic would work on the pumps, but his salary was in Public Works. And Chad Holland would come out. His salary wasn't in TCUD, it was in Public Works. Out of that 12, though, 2 of them are billing clerks. So you've got 10 counting your utility director, and then 2 billing clerks right now. Whereas before, you basically had, well, Dora more or less is a part-time billing clerk, and I say part-time because of everything else she was also doing, and then had 2 full-time employees with a system that was very, very new, so to speak.
So how many people have we hired for actual on the street in the since we acquired TCUD 2?
2 to 8.
I mean, literally, we only had 2 people before that?
Yes, ma'am.
Include plus billing, so 4
Plus
or no?
1 with billing. You only have 1 billing. You didn't add a second billing clerk until we acquired TCUD 2.
All right, so we got 8 more since we acquired TCUD 2,
That are-
and now you're asking for 3 more.
Yes, ma'am. Philip, maybe something that may help with this discussion. Are there things that are not being done now
I'm sure.
that could be done with those employees that are necessary or regulatory mandated, what have you?
Absolutely. We, by DHEC, we're supposed to have a valve program where we go around and operate all of our valves within our system. Now, to be honest, we don't operate a valve unless we have a break. So we don't know if it's working properly or not. We are supposed to have a flushing program, a hydrant program, a line cleaning program. Like I said, right now we are 95 to 98% reactive. In other words, we react to what happens.
Okay, and I mean, please don't misunderstand, I'm not trying to give anybody a hard time here. You know, and I appreciate what you guys have done, and, you know, I've said it before at city council meetings, I think many of us have. You know, the yeoman's effort that your team has put in since TCUD 2 was acquired, and I know all the overtime, and I know all the responses, so I want you to know that I personally very much appreciate it, and it hasn't gone unnoticed, you know, and so I'm not arguing that you do or don't need these, I'm just trying to, you know, be a good steward of the resources here. But, you know, you're mentioning a number of things that you should be doing that you just simply don't have the time to do. So I guess my next question is, well, when you only had 2 staff members prior to TCUD 2, I didn't hear you.
It wasn't happening then either.
So I understand that none of it's happening, and I'm not saying it shouldn't, but, you know, is there a hellfire rush to make it happen? Are we violating law and regulation? Are we creating potential problems for the city that are gonna cost us more money down the road? et
Yes, but
cetera,
not
et
from a,
cetera?
not from a fine regulatory standpoint.
Okay.
From a operational standpoint, could it cost us money? Absolutely. Exercising those valves and things like that. Doing preventative maintenance on the pumps for a lift station. We just replaced the pump and it was, what was the price on that one? Right about $3,000. You've got 32 lift stations, each one of them has 2 pumps. And the last thing we ever want is a pump to not be working at a lift station. Philip,
How old is TCUD 1?
16
years,
16 years, almost 17, yep.
So at what point does a system become more of a burden? Where you need to have more repairs? You know, the first
Yeah,
5
the
or 6 years.
honeymoon's
it's-
over,
you
yeah.
know, at what
Kind of a
point,
thing.
are we at that point with TCUD 1 where it needs a lot more repairs than it did 5 years ago?
Or maybe just more care and feeding, maybe.
More care, yes, I think so.
So then
Typically-
so basically you're asking for employees for the care of the system,
Yes.
not necessarily to do the work of the system, but for the care of the system.
Well, some of it is the work of the system. Right now with the new developments going in, contractors are installing lines. We don't have the personnel to send out there to make sure they're installing those lines correctly at all times. In other words, we have to send them out there when we have available personnel to check. It may be at the end of the day, maybe in the middle of the day, to where
But those are being They're not, it's not that the lines are not being inspected, because we have to get engineering reports, and DHEC has to have those reports to place it into operation, but it's
But
always
e-
good to have eyes
Even
on
with
it.
these 3 new hires, you're asking for $12,000 in overtime.
Yes.
Wouldn't these 3 new hires reduce your amount of overtime you need?
34,000.
34,000, with the,
Yeah,
Oh,
it did
that
not
is
decrease, which I
that
was
is
hoping
the
to have seen
theory
decrease.
behind
Be a
that.
decrease, 'cause you're
Okay,
getting
I was looking at workman's comp
Slightly.
and said, yeah.
There is the
for
theory behind
like
that, with
church.
the more employees you have, of course, you're able to get it done during normal working hours.
Okay,
But 2 weeks ago, we had 12 leaks going at one time. As the guys were working 12, 15 hours a day, trying to get caught up, and they're getting burnt out.
Phil, what do you envision for a system our size, total head count? If council does approve these 3 new, how many more are you thinking would be necessary going forward?
At least 2. And then yeah,
Total.
yes, about 16. And I did research, looked at other utilities of our size. They have anywhere between 20 to 30 employees for the utility department. That's just dealing with wastewater collection and water.
And-
Other utilities who may have power have, of course, more, but
these new employees are October 1st hires, or are they January hires? When are we,
You would be bringing folks in, your first hire is probably by the end of October. Your next one's probably end of November, first part of December. Your next one's after the turn of the calendar year.
Has T-Cud increased ever for rates? Or recently for rates?
Well, you just
just
did
did.
it in June.
You passed on the cost. That's not really an
Correct.
increase in rates.
Oh,
That's
as far as increase our margins?
Right.
Yes, we have. A lot, I would say the majority of the rates, as they came through, as the system was growing, as we were needing to add things, equipment, manpower, things like that, yes. Astronomically, no.
Ryan, David, you got anything?
Okay, remember, when this comes to you for approval after this is the time to discuss it and create and have issues, because
Explain this,
when it comes for
water
approval.
tower maintenance. We did $5,000 last year, we're doing $10,000 this year. Why is it doubled?
we have yearly inspections that are required by DHEC. We also have an altitude valve that required maintenance this year that has not been maintained in 3 to 4 years. There's some upgrades that we need to do to that altitude valve once, if council approves this budget and we get the SCADA system, that we can add to that so we can control that altitude valve. Right now, that altitude valve basically tells when we get our booster pumps up and going, when that booster pump to kick on. We have no set level with that. With the upgrades of the SCADA system, where we can control the tank levels, we can also control that altitude valve. So if we have a series of events, or whatever the case may be, where we're requiring more water to get in the tank, we can operate that remotely.
Okay, the other reason for my question is, you asked for $5,000 last year. You haven't spent any of it this year.
You've got a PO with an invoice for about $3,800 on that altitude valve,
And plus
We haven't paid it
yearly
yet.
inspections.
We haven't paid it yet.
plus your inspections. So those are forthcoming. They just have not been spent they just don't appear on your year-to-dates as of yet. They'll probably show up in your August financials.
Possibly, yeah.
When is the
I want-
equalization tank supposed to leave? March?
Okay, yeah, what you see there on your equalization tank is 5 months rent plus removal. So that would be 5 months of the first budget year, October, November, December, January, February, out, gone, is the game plan, based on, where the contractors are now in the process of their, repairs.
Are you gonna need to do any type of landscaping after, or are you just gonna put straw down and grass, whatever the heck?
I'm
it
sure,
is,
I'm
or-
sure we will do some type of landscaping. I mean, because some of those lealands that, well, half of which are dead, that Utilities Inc. planted around the outside, we'll have to remove a section, some of the fence to be able to get some of that, get that thing out. Once we get it out, then, absolutely, we'll dress it back up, especially since it sits right by the golf course.
Have you reached out to the residents that live around that tank that have talked to you in the past? Because I know it was December, regulated by DHEC, it has to be gone by December. You know, have you touched base with those that have been asking the questions?
Not recently.
Delayed.
All the ones that have reached out to me, we have told them that, our goal is to get it out by the end of this year. That is still our goal, but we didn't want to budget for, all right, December, it's got to go, in case there were, we start running into a really wet fall and it pushes schedules back and things of that nature. So we're budgeting on a 5-month. DHEC will give us that long to get the permanent equalization installed. After that, we're going to start running into issues with DHEC, not for the equalization tank, but because of the consent agreement we have with them that's got scheduling and timing on it. So, our goal is to have that thing gone, at least be done using it in December, and the month of January is it going bye-bye. But we wanted to make sure that we were covering our bases just in case we did run into things this
And
fall.
that makes sense. I just didn't want to be telling people one thing and doing
Correct.
something else.
Our goal is still the end of the year and removing in January, but obviously we'll try to keep folks around there up to date as we get closer and closer.
Well, I mean, it just sounds like it's something we have to do because we don't want to start dealing with DHEC and fines and all that stuff. We've been there, done that, got a T-shirt, not interested in doing any more of that. So,
I guess to Ryan's point, we have the utility Facebook page. When we get midway point, maybe 2.5 months, maybe we can alert people as to where we are on the status and potentially that it's we're on target to get rid of it. God willing, the creek don't rise kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anything else with the TCUD budget?
No questions on utilities?
Now
I
the
think
fun
we
begins.
grilled Philip enough, didn't we?
Really?
Thank you.
Now the fun begins.
Real quick, just highlights, and we've touched on most of these already through the conversation. The upgrade to the SCADA system for the remote monitoring on your booster pump stations, as we were talking, equipment trailer, some new headcount, additional maintenance vehicles. The proposed budget shows no further increases other than the one that council just recently approved that's in play now. And as I stated earlier, this budget and the funds with expenditures does meet and exceed the 1.2 to 1 ratio that is required. So very, very pleased with how our utility budget has gone now that we're 2.5 years in with running the traditional side.
2.5 years?
Bought it June of 14. We started running it.
Holy,
Yes, ma'am. So, well, 2
Wow.
years now.
2 years.
2 years, sorry.
2 years plus.
I can't even believe that.
Yes.
Mm-mm-mm.
All right. Yes, sir.
Before we leave that, it might be helpful, you and I had a conversation about the new Wi-Fi meters. Might be helpful for the rest of council to hear about it. I'm getting complaints that the city is now charging me more money for my water because you have put in these new meters, so on and so forth. If you would,
The rate did go up. It
Check.
didn't go up astronomically, but what we are finding, and Shanae actually, our lead billing clerk, had a fun conversation with somebody today. Yes, some of the bills are higher, but that's because they're being billed for the volume that's being used. There was a guy that was adamant that came by the office today, and he happened to have one of those new Wi-Fi meters, and she could show him hour by hour how much water he was using on which day, and he's like, oh yeah, I forgot about that, and oh yeah, we were doing this other, okay, thank you, paid his bill, and off he went. So. As we have stated, as I have stated, since proposing the new, upgrading these meters and everything, as a meter ages, it slows down. So you're still getting all the water that you want, but the dial's not spinning at the rate that it's supposed to spin. Especially in traditional TGK, you've got some meters that have been in the ground over 20 years, 25 years. they're not capturing the volume, and yet we're still having to pay for it. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of folks whose bills are going to increase, but it has not as much to do with the rate as it does with us actually able to bill for the volume that they're using.
So when you said the rate went up, that's just the rate we passed through.
That's correct.
Rock Hill. Our rate didn't go up.
That, well, our rate did go up, but
Just
our
our
margin,
pass-through.
our
That's
margin stayed the same. That's correct. It was strictly pass-through.
Which we clarified during the meeting.
Yes, sir.
Those darn Hersey meters, they're so accurate.
These are Mueller's.
Oh, okay.
T-Cud 2 rate went up too?
TCUD 2 water rate stayed the same. The
Right.
sewer rate went up 1 cent per thousand. The
So you guys are
TCUD,
still, you
yeah.
guys are still the same water rate
correct.
on the TCUD 2 system.
That's
It's
correct.
just The new meters are capturing more of the
Right.
usage.
Yep.
And I remember
Yep.
you warning us that was probably gonna happen, so.
We drink out of the lake anyway.
Deal.
We're old school.
Anything else with utilities?
All right.
All right, here we go.
So
The
we're
fun
done?
starts.
Oh, I thought we were
Now the
adjourning.
fun
I'm sorry.
starts.
Oh, come on.
Thought we were adjourning.
Then the fun will start, so come on.
1617 general fund, your taxes, this is property, auto, delinquent penalties, $4,794,636. In your package, you'll see how that was calculated. Your assessments at $46,559,983 times .089, which is our millage rate. And it envisions a 98.6% collection rate. That's what the .986 is. We have been using that, I think, since Bob started with us as a collection rate, and we've been about dead on every time, so, continuing with that. License fines and fees, at $2,977,261. What's incorporated in that number are your franchise fees, your court fines and fees, which is directly tied to the reimbursement to other governmental units in court, which we'll see here in a minute. Your building inspection and permit fees, as well as your business license revenue. Again, at $2,977,261. Your state shared revenue, once again, the General Assembly is violating state law and not funding anyone at the levels they're supposed to. We should be at about 209,000, I believe, Bob. We're staying at 164,396. I think this is probably the fourth or fifth year in a row. And this is statewide. It's not just us. Your recreation revenue at 406,952. That does include your York County recreation funds at 143,452 in that, as well as our participation fees. And then your other revenues, you've got sundry of things, waste management fees. People paid for us to come pick up couches and refrigerators curbside and take it to the landfill, sell of fixed assets, boat storage rental, things of that nature. Your cell tower rental, that's for the big giant flagpole right by the tennis courts. That is a cell tower. And that by contract goes up 4% every year in revenue. So that brings your entire general fund revenues to $8,494,505. I'll say this probably again at the end when we go through the highlights of this. Still no millage increase. If council, unless council for some reason wants to do one, this would be the 7th year in a row that we have not had to do a millage increase.
Thank
So
goodness,
staying at the
because
89 mills.
We've got so many tax increases from the schools and all that.
When people get their tax bills, you will see an increase due to
Yep.
school. If you've gotten your auto tax bill recently, you've seen a nice tick there from the schools. I think they increased 6 mills, the school district did on, for the auto tax. Yeah, our cars keep getting older, but the tax bill stays the same.
Yeah, that's
So,
good, right?
but no increase from the city standpoint. And I think they just did assessments, what, last year, 2 years ago, Bob? So, not anticipating a new reassessment, but who knows what the county will do.
3 more years.
It's just a breakdown on the screen now, that's, again, in your handouts. Just to show you, obviously, 56% of our revenues comes from taxes. It's, obviously commercial and residential. Your license fines and fees at 35%. Rec revenue makes up 5% of our revenues, and then your state share revenue and other revenues at approximately 2%. Your departmental budgets. Council and I'll just go through these, and then we can come back, and if you've got specifics on each one, be more than happy to try to answer for you. Your council budget at $38,511. Biggest reason for the lowering on that is no election to have to pay for this year. And we moved flags to non-departmental. And those flags are the giant flag on the cell tower. Really didn't belong with council. So we moved that down into non-departmental. Your court at $156,438. That's one of the biggest upticks there is your reimbursement to other governmental units. Your administration at $731,672. Your development services at $562,063. Public works at $831,247. Law enforcement at $2,418,294. Fire services at $1,141,806. Parks and Recreation, $550,938. And non-departmental at $1,853,862. And your biggest things in non-departmental, obviously, are your bond payments and the trash and recycle collections. But it leaves you with a fund balance of $209,674. To give you a balanced budget at $8,494,505. Might be one of the healthiest budgets that I think I've seen since I've been working with Bob on the city's budgets for the past 7-8 years. Before we get into question, there's again just a breakdown of your percentages. Law enforcement and fire department, you're looking at 41% of the budget. Public safety is always, I don't know of a city where public safety doesn't occupy, except for the one city down by Columbia. They're doing, well, we're doing quite well with how they were writing their speeding tickets. Your public works at 10%, admin at 9%, development services at 7%, Parks and Rec at 7%, council less than 1%. And 2% to fund balance.
Maybe we need a raise.
Now, this next slide, and we can discuss this now or discuss it after we go through any questions you may have on the departments. As council will recall, I asked for any items that council wanted us to look into for consideration for the budget. These are items that are not included in the figures, in the budget figures. Yes, sir.
Can we just go back 1 second?
Sure.
Bob, can you do me a favor while he's doing this? Take the percentage of 35% for the revenue source for license, fines, and fees. Can you back out what the revenue source we have from court, municipal court? What the percentage is? Because all we ever hear is that the reason why the boys in blue are writing tickets is to increase the revenue of the city, when actually it costs us more money.
60% of everything we collect at court, as far from speeding tickets, things like that, goes to Columbia.
Right.
60%. And that funds things like the Criminal Justice Academy and things of that nature. So
So I just,
you get a $50 speeding ticket, 60% of that is gone to Columbia.
It's the revenue is 1.4%.
and the expenses are 2%, I think is what you said?
Yes, I believe that's correct. Does council want to discuss these capital type items? Does council want to consider any of these to add to the budget? And I'll remind you, you've got right now you're to the good revenues over expenditures of $209,000. The park benches, and I know a couple of y'all were on council at the time, we started replacing those old wooden park benches with the ones with the stone sides, the powder coated, really nice benches, maintenance-free benches. Based on the number of remaining benches we have, which I believe is what, 48 of them, it would cost approximately $35,000. That's with shipping, freight and everything. They're about $680, $690 a pop, not counting taxes and shipping. Installation of a water fountain, like a water dog fountain, like the one that's there at the intersection of Tega Drive and Winsong Bay. Doing one at Molokai Drive, cost approximately $10,000. Reason for the big expense there is because of the size of the water line and the tap. You don't have just a little 6-inch line there. It's a 12-inch line that runs up Molokai through that section because there's so many residential units downstream that it's got to get water to. So the tap fee is, the tap cost would be as much as what the fountain cost would be there. Decorative fencing potentially around the fountain. I don't know if that's really as necessary anymore with the new landscaping that we've put around there, but we did want to price it, get a price on it.
That's, what fountain? The
The-
dog fountain?
No, the fountain. No, the big fountain out front, the pond with the big fountain, not a fence around the dog fountain.
We're gonna put fencing around it. and new dog park.
Well, we were just talking about a fountain.
Sorry, should have clarified, my mistake.
They may not be able to get to the fountain if we fence it off.
This would be, we priced it as a, one of those decorative aluminum fences with a gate, $8,100. Roof over the basketball court at Trailhead Park, $45,000. Lowering the trail, the hill, as you go from Trailhead Park over towards the Memorial Gardens, its council is aware, we've provided those quotes previously at $15,000. Extending the windward sidewalk, $5,800. And then we've got pricing for sidewalk on Windjammer, sidewalk on Molokai, and sidewalk on Point Clear. And I've got a disclaimer at the bottom there. This is a pre-engineered estimate. And cost is definitely going to vary depending on right-of-way acquisition and the amount of grading that would have to be done. And you can see Windjammer's at $253,000. Molokai at $262,000, and Point Clear at $193,000. And again, that you can probably add 10 to 20% to those by the time you get it engineered and start getting into right of way, maybe more. So, did want to provide those for council, for y'all to be able to discuss, give us direction as to what you would like to do with all or any of these, and at that.
I think we should do them all because Dottie's gonna write the check.
Yeah?
Sylvia, I think the mayor made a motion. I'm just kidding.
I have not seconded.
Kidding, just kidding. Real quick, if I can, I'll just run through the highlights, so to speak. As I said previously, no, this budget before you tonight does not include any millage increase. It does have increased funding for street maintenance, as you can see, and that's in the public works budget. We went from $75,000, requesting $100,000 for city roads and streets. Resurfacing of tennis courts, I think in about 2 weeks. We're doing 2 upper and 2 lower, and then this would be to finish that off, doing 2 upper, 2 lower. And for those that may be listening at home that are pickleball enthusiasts, when they resurface this year, it will, on the lower courts, will include striping, lining, whatever you call it, for pickleball.
Pickleball?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Apparently, it's a very fast-paced game, and
Coming.
It's a
balls
growing sport,
whizzing
yeah.
around, and
I'll look it up.
lots, very, very popular. Replacing the playground equipment at Heron Harbor. A lot of requests. We've had some turnover in that area, a lot of young families, and it's the only playground equipment. When we refurbished all of it several years ago, it was the only playground that we have not hit yet. Paving the walkway to the docks at Pitcairn. We've tried doing that with a number of things over the years, and because of the incline to it, it just washes out and ruts out. So actually coming in and putting a permanent walkway, concrete sidewalk through there, that does get used quite a lot, especially during the boating season. Stabilizing the shoreline at Pitcairn. This is just adding riprap, keep it from washing away and letting the lake get a little bigger. Planting trees and shrubs around the Trailhead restrooms and the booster pump building there at Trailhead, just to dress up a little bit. Now, we're still waiting for Duke Energy to do the last phase of hooking the power up to that. And then all that construction's 100% done to where we can then go in and, kind of dress that up a little bit better. Signage for disc golf course, kind of an overall, so folks know at the beginning, here's where this thing goes, especially as it crosses Shoreline Parkway. Additional signage for some of our nature trails. Y'all have probably seen some of these signs, the little white signs with the hiker on it, to help identify some of those trails a little bit better. Re-landscaping the area around the number 9 tee box right out here, where all the junipers are that you see as you ride by. That as well as the stuff at Trailhead, you'll see in the Public Works budget under the landscape line item, that uptick to the 90 grand there from the 40 that was in the current year's budget. This project alone is estimated about $30,000 just to get rid of all those junipers and poison ivy and things like that and get that disposed of. And then really dress that corner up, since it does have a high visibility. We want to encourage folks to come up here and, give a good first impression and cleaning that up. Landscaping for the old well house sites at Manila Bay, Marquesas, and Point Clear. I believe Manila Bay is getting torn down. When do you have that scheduled? In the next couple of weeks? Okay. Marquesas and Point Clear are already down, and coming back in the fall and re-landscaping those with some perennials, low-maintenance perennials, and dress those up and make them look nice. EMT certifications, you'll see an uptick in your travel and training stuff for in the fire department. As Chief Szymanski has mentioned, working to trying to get at least one certified EMT per shift to assist when they go on those calls. Server upgrade, digital fingerprinting, and e-desk kiosk at the police department and the PD. Replacement vehicles in PD, it's 4 replacement patrol cars to go into the fleet and sell put into auction some of those older high mileage, high maintenance vehicles, and 1 additional vehicle needed in Public Works. Additional headcount through the budget, 1 in fire services, 1 in Public Works, 1 in law enforcement, and 1 in Parks and Recreation would be the only headcounts that are being requested in the budget here. The Parks and Rec one would be a kind of a hybrid position between assisting with field preparation and some maintenance, as well as being able to work more of a flex schedule to be here in the evenings when we've got games going on, things like that, and on the weekends. Assisting with those, with the events we've got going on. So with that, we can take questions. I would prefer, so that we can get the appropriate staff member up here, if we can maybe go department by department. If it's a question that I can't answer, I'd be more than happy to have our department heads here come up and try to answer it for you.
Go ahead, Jen. Jen got a list of questions.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
All
Scott
right, so,
doesn't get any more money because he didn't wear his uniform. Chief Parker gets a couple more dollars. All right, good.
Well, regarding the police department, I
Can we-
noticed in the CIP, it did not change. Yes.
If I can real quick, can we start at the top with
Okay.
municipal council, municipal court, questions with the first two, with council or court? Good there?
Yeah.
Everybody good there? Okay. Administration? Problems or questions in the admin department?
This codifying of ordinances, this is a continual
Yes, sir.
bill for us.
Yes, well, as council adopts any new ordinances or amends ordinances, then yes, so that we don't get back to where we were, 3 years ago, Katie, I think, 4 years ago, to where we've then got a big $10,000 to $15,000 expense because now we have to have them clean up so much. One of the things we did do with them, I think it was last year, is we pulled the land development code and the zoning code out of the codification process with Municode that references that we have those, and then we just have links to those specific ordinances on the website where somebody would click to go to the codified ordinances. Those are so massive, anytime you make one little change to it, it gets really expensive. So, yes, to answer your question, it would be foreseen as an ongoing expense.
See, the copier lease has gone up quite a bit, and I know the mayor will be happy, you must be spending more on paper too, but
It's copiers and printers, yes, ma'am.
I see the legal field.
unfortunately, it's not mine, so I'm thinking I may want to apply for the job.
Anything else in admin? No. All right, I'll keep scrolling. Development services?
Gonna be busy again next year, Tom?
Yes.
Development services, will that include any of the items that you were, like the sidewalks?
Those
that
aren't,
were being included under there? No, okay,
none of that would be in development services.
all right.
I'm good.
Public Works?
Is that where we'd have the lowering of the hill because Public Works is gonna be performing a certain portion?
I would think that those things would,
Find out where
yeah,
those are.
I understand. I would think, those items, as they're really more project items, we would probably capture all of those in a line item on non-departmental
Okay,
as a full expense.
So they're not.
Instead of spreading it to this
here.
department or that department, you're right.
Because they're not here.
They're not
because
in
you
here now.
need- You want us to tell you if we want you
What
to
to put in
consider
it.
it or
Yes, ma'am.
include it.
Public Works, everybody good there?
Going.
Okay. Jennifer, I think we're to where we started. Law enforcement? Thank you.
all right. I was really happy that the e-desk was moved up, but I was a little, I guess, Chief Parker, you sold me very well on the Power DMS software, and the liability for our city, or the potential. And so I didn't know if that was something that we should be moving to be sooner.
So the Power DMS software is going to help us when we become accredited, is really where it's going to make the difference. Or I actually just got our accreditation date today and haven't even had time. It is going to be in October, our on-site. So as we move forward, when Power DMS, when we become nationally accredited, we will be required to have Power DMS. But prior to that, it will not assist us as much as it would until we head towards national accreditation.
Okay. All right. And when do you anticipate that being?
We gotta get through state.
Hopefully, I get through
I didn't
state
know how long.
accreditation. And once I get through state accreditation, hopefully, if everything goes well with that, then we will try to push within the next year to year and a half to move towards national accreditation.
Okay.
Once Rock Hill, you were in Rock Hill when when they were state and then went to national. What was approximate turnaround between the two? Because they were pretty close together, weren't they?
Once, well, the whole process took them about 5 years before their first accreditation. But once they got accredited through the state, then the next year they went national. But there was also a lot more staff to help them to be able to put it that way. So there is a difference because we have to go through every policy and procedure piece by piece, and it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
Anything else on PD?
Did the M4 rifles remain on there?
Those are, do you want to talk? In the capital, is it capital outlay where those are, Bob? Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Under capital outlay, yes, those are still there for council to discuss, and I've already told Chief that was a concern. We currently have AR-15s. How many? 9 of them. So,
Yeah. So the AR-15s or M4 rifles, It's the national trend. Almost 100% of law enforcement agencies across the country are going to M4 rifles. The reason being is because shotguns don't have a range really outside of 25 yards with accuracy where you could maybe harm a innocent citizen. So some people, sometimes I hear, why Tega, why would they need rifles? Just some quick examples. Hopefully we never need them, but some quick examples. In 2010, 2 officers got shot at here in Tega. This year we had a bank robbery and armed robbery at McDonald's. We also captured a man with an M4 with 900 rounds and 8 bomb initiators this year.
But you have AR-15s.
We have 9.
And how effective were those AR-15s when you deployed them against the bank robbers and that McDonald's?
Yeah, well, thankfully, the suspect was gone. But the fact is, it's kind of like the fire department. We wouldn't ask the fire department to go to a 3-alarm fire with a fire extinguisher. If someone's shooting at us with a long rifle, as you know, a pistol is not the choice weapon for that.
Well, an AR-15 and an M4 are the same thing.
Yes.
And you have AR-15s.
M4s, AR-15s, yeah.
You
So,
have AR-15s.
Yes.
How effective were those AR-15s at that McDonald's? When did you deploy them at the McDonald's?
The officers didn't have them.
They didn't have them at the McDonald's, but you have them in your arsenal.
Yes.
Well, why didn't you deploy them?
Because they weren't trained. Those officers hadn't gone through training. They were new officers. And we have a training date set in 3 weeks.
Well, you ought to train them on the AR-15s. And let's do the AR-15s first. Let's do the AR-15s first. Let's don't do the M4s yet.
Why?
We have AR-15s, they're the same weapon.
I know, but I think the chief is
We're-
suggesting that he
what
needs
we're
to
saying is
supplement what
every-
he has.
Yeah, what I'm saying is every.
They haven't been using the AR-15s.
Hey, I get that.
No, but the AR-15 and the M4 is the same weapon, right?
Right.
Okay, so we have 9 AR-15/M4s. Okay, and we have officers, how many officers?
We have 25.
Okay, so if we approve these guns, are they gonna be sitting in the cars?
Yes.
They should be.
And what's your qualification
Well,
process as far as
no
for the
point in having them
training,
in the closet.
It's
to
a
get your officers trained?
3-day qualification course. The reason why, like I said, the officers that responded that night, there was 3 new officers that responded that night that just hadn't been trained yet. There's no doubt that it's one of those weapons that if you need it, you have to have it. I've been involved in a bank robbery where 125 shots were fired. The guy shot a friend of mine's tie in half, and the only way to eliminate the threat was by a rifle.
I think we
I got
understand what
one
you're
more
saying, but.
You got 9 AR-15s.
Yes.
Current, let me finish. I think I'm in your same area. When you do any type of shift change, just the point is that $22,000 or $23,000 that you're asking for an additional 14 or 15 rifles. Is that accurate?
I'm asking for 7,500 this
3
year.
years.
It's spread out.
Okay, right. But at the end of the day, it's another 12
21,000.
or 15 rifles.
Approximately.
And any type of shift change, you know, aside from a combat scenario where everybody's required to have their weapon at all times, on average, what do we have as far as for policemen beating the street?
4
3 or
officers.
4 officers?
Yes, sir.
We currently have 9 ARs. Are we requiring every police officer to have an M4 and AR assigned to him as his and only his?
Yes, we will. Absolutely.
And
When
now
is
from a
that?
budget perspective
let him
though,
finish.
so, and I'm just, trying to look big picture from a budget perspective, for me, my days in the Marine Corps, if you were pulling duty or whatever you were doing that required a weapon, specifically an M16 or AR, there was always a changeover and you could hand over that weapon.
Now we have sights that have changed since then where we put sights on the weapons, and those sights are specific to the officer. If they don't train with it, then we're not qualified with it, then we are liable if we change over from one weapon to the other.
Okay, that makes sense.
And we're trying
That
to-
was my question, because I'm just thinking, okay, it's an AR, switch it over, change over
Yep.
while you do.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I had a M16, M4 type weapon for 20 years. I just don't know why a police force like Tega have you ever deployed with, I mean, have you ever fired a M16, in Tega?
No, sir.
And now we need
No,
them.
sir.
All of a sudden. I think we're just watching too much CNN, I think. I
Well,
think we have the safest
see,
city in Tega.
We may be the safest, and there's a lot of safe places in the country and the world, but we watch CNN. You're right. You put on the TV every day, and
I know, Dottie,
something
but
else
do you
is
know
happening.
what an M4 is?
Yes, I do. I used to work for General Dynamics. We made them, so I am well aware of what they are.
Well, I
And-
carried
and
them for 20 years. I
and
just
I-
think that's a lot of
I
weapons
mean,
for Tega.
I'm not happy that we even have to discuss getting them.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I think the world we live in requires that we, unfortunately, be ready, because we don't know, and I hope we never ever need them. Now, what number we need and all of that, you know, and
Well, I
whether
mean, we
they
already
can be
have,
switched out and so forth.
9, and we don't even use them now, it sounds like. We don't even use them now.
Fortunately.
But we need 22 more that we don't use now.
Well, we're not buying that many
Well-
each year, and,
Right.
and this is obviously a request, and we're here to say, well, gee, maybe we shouldn't be so aggressive in that process or whatever.
So we're
But,
gonna
you
have
know, I mean, I
22
certainly
plus
respect your
9.
opinion as two people that
And we got,
carried them
how many
and used
police
them.
officers do we have?
25, he said.
So we have
25.
25 police officers, and we have, how many on patrol? Four at a time.
4 at a time, yes, sir.
So we're gonna have people on the desk that are gonna have a M16 or a M4 available to them. And we're gonna have a supply officer, and we're gonna have, I mean, we're just gonna have all these people that aren't even gonna be on duty. And we're gonna have all these, I think it's overkill. We've got 9, and how many people are gonna be on duty at any specific time?
4 typically. And then if you have,
So each one can deploy with 2 of them if we need them.
No,
That's-
because their
that's-
site.
Explain the site thing to me again.
so I'll explain. There's aim point sights. That is the national standard now. It will be part of the accreditation process. And officers are to use those sites as well as qualify without those sites to use their weapon. Those aim points are specific to those officers. Everybody knows who's used aim points, that it is set for your sight, for your line of vision. So what we want to do, and what has been the standard across the country, for us it's a little bit different. Most have one officer with one rifle rack in their car, or shotgun was the standard. Now the standard is, for us, would be 2 rifles with a dual rack, because we share cars. So we have to make sure that it's specific to that officer having the ability to get to that rifle. So as we talk about it, we want to go to each officer having a rifle, because right now they have shotguns. Well, the shotgun is not the weapon of choice in law enforcement anymore, based off of, unfortunately, the bad guys with M4s. The guy that was just in Baton Rouge was shot from a 100-yard shot from a patrol rifle from an officer responding as he was killing officers. The only way that happened was because he had a patrol rifle, because a shotgun would not have done it. I've also been in shootouts where the only thing that was able to stop the perpetrator was a rifle. Yes, we live in Tega, but people don't come down here from North Carolina and say, you know what, this is Tega, I'm not going to rob or shoot anybody here. That doesn't happen.
Okay, go back to the site thing, and
Are you
forgive
using
my
red dot
ignorance.
These
sites?
guys understand.
Yes, sir.
it.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure I understand it.
Are you using,
Specific to the shooter, specific to the individual.
But is it
that-
specific
that
to the gun?
qualifies.
no, well, it's
No.
specific,
So it
Once
can
it's-
come off the gun?
no, you would want to leave it on the
Leave it
gun.
on.
Once it's
Why?
mounted.
Because it's mounted
Because
and
you've
it's
sighted
set.
it in.
So it's sighted that way when you go, it's like getting a pair of glasses.
Kind of.
But
sight
if
it,
Well-
if you take it off and remount it, it could
it-
Do you-
it could
do you
damage
record your
the
sight?
Okay.
I mean, is it the kind that you record your sight? So if I
What do you mean
record, well, I've recorded my sight, I'm like 2 up, 3 down, or whatever it is. So
Yes, sir.
So I know my sight is 2 down, 3 up or something. So if I get on another one, I know, I get on the other one, I go 2 down, 3 up.
Basically.
Okay, so any gun I go on that's got a red dot, I'll say, oh, I'm going over this one, I'm 2 down, 3 up. I know my sight on this gun, on this gun, and this gun. So I can change, I can go to any gun and change that sight, for the most part. I might be off just a tad.
Okay.
Chief, are you thinking that over time you want to replace what you have? Or this will just supplement because they're the same?
Now, I also want to say that these 9 rifles were purchased before I got here, and this has been part of the process of evaluation of making sure that we need to get to where we are, to where most departments in the country are. But this is not a replacement process. This is
An
just to get us
enhancement.
to where we need to be.
Okay.
And the difference between an AR-15 and an M4 is what?
The length.
The barrel
Pretty
length,
much.
it's the same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the barrel length.
Pistol grips and the stock.
Yep.
It's the same ammunition. It's the same twist in the
Yeah.
barrel.
Yeah.
It's the same everything.
But
So we've got 9 already.
Right, so whether he was, I mean, it doesn't matter which one he buys, the M4 or the AR-15, if they're the same. I mean, so you're not advocating that he buy one over the other. You're advocating for we have a sufficient supply
Right,
and we shouldn't buy any.
right.
It is.
We've already got them. I understand he's saying it's an ugly world out there, but we're in Tega, South Carolina, and we already have 9. And I'm not a big fan of having rifles in Tega right now with everything going. I mean, I just don't think, I think that's overkill.
I mean, I maybe don't want you to have one.
I
but
have
I'd
one.
be pretty happy if the chief has one. I mean, I'm
I
just
have
saying,
one.
you know.
Well, that's the concern. More and more citizens have them,
I know.
and
But
we
so
don't.
do you. You guys have them too.
But I'm saying that not
I want him
everybody
to
has
have-
the ability to get it, and we need to make sure that everybody can respond properly, because.
But
we're-
everybody who's here has it. Everybody who's on patrol has it.
But he's saying if we had a situation, he'd be calling in other people if we had a big situation.
Would
So
you
they
have
can't
more
say,
than
"Oh,
9
gee,
here?"
can I borrow your gun
No,
for a second?"
what I'm saying is if we have the 9 spread out over shifts, let's say 2 shifts, narcotics, detective, whoever has them, and they got them specifically in their cars, locked up the way they're supposed to be, in locks. 2 guys have them, 2 guys don't. Doesn't mean one guy's off that day, or one guy doesn't respond first. He doesn't wait while there's an active shooter and say, let me wait for the rifle. If someone's shooting actively in a school, if someone's shooting actively in Walmart, or wherever it may be, in a house in Tega where 2 officers got shot at, we need to be able to respond with the 2 that don't have them just as well as the 2 that do have them.
You're saying they'd be locked up in a car someplace and you couldn't get, I mean, where would they, you would store them in a car?
It'd be with the
Absolutely.
officer.
Absolutely. That's what everybody does around the nation.
And then you wouldn't have access to them in a car? I mean, I don't, that's. what
No,
I'm
you'd
saying.
have access to it in the car if it was in your car and you had the rifle. What I'm saying is you have 4 officers per shift.
And those 4 officers would have the rifles with them.
If we only had 9 rifles, they wouldn't,
Why not?
Why not?
because then I'd have to switch the rifles out with the scopes, and that wouldn't work. I can't do it.
Well, then ask for scopes.
I can't switch the scopes off of the rifles.
But I just said, don't you record your scope? Don't you record your sights?
No, because say the site's recorded for somebody. I know you know this, but if the site's recorded for somebody that's 2 left, 3 right, 3 up, 3 down, whatever it is, and the other person doesn't know what that other person's 3 up, 3 down is, in a crisis situation, he's not thinking about, let me move to 4 up, 3 down, let me switch. You have it set, you have it pre-recorded. It's you know, again, if it's something that's it's a need. I see it as a need. I see that yes, this is Tega, absolutely,
We hope it stays
and I
TGK.
hope it stays that way. But again, I wouldn't fight a 3-alarm fire with a fire extinguisher. Period. That's all there is. End of story for me.
And your qualification, recertification, what time frame do they have to do that yearly?
Yes,
That
sir.
3-day course?
Yes, sir.
And you're asking for 4 each year?
Yes, until we.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
so it's not asking for 22,
22.
as I heard.
It's
We're
only
asking for
$7,500
4
in
each year, so that
Correct.
we can build up.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, I'm not, the money isn't what I'm saying. I'm just, that we even have them, is my concern.
Well, you must live in a different world than I do, Dave.
You don't live in TK?
I just, you
In
know,
a different
I hear what you're saying.
world.
I hear what you're saying, but, you know, I'm gonna take it back to something you've already heard from me say before. You know, I had a good friend who lost his daughter in Sandy Hook. Sandy Hook is a sleepy little town in Connecticut.
We already
And-
have, but we already have 9,
I understand,
Mayor, that's what I'm saying.
but we already have 9, but what happens if we need 12 officers? What happens if we have 12 people responding to, God forbid?
Well, then why not M60s? I mean, just,
Well, I mean, we don't have to be ridiculous,
let's
right?
not be ridiculous.
Well, I
just-
think maybe it is.
And you said that these are more accurate as well.
Absolutely.
So this is protecting the officer as well as any other bystander.
Protecting us,
It's protecting everyone.
everybody,
It's-
hopefully.
Right now, if we were to use that situation, we'd have to pull out a shotgun, and a shotgun spread ratio could take or hurt an innocent bystander, where this is trying to protect people more.
What kind of ammunition are you using in your shotguns?
We have to use buckshot.
Well, what's the spray of a buckshot?
Depends
It's-
on the-
Depends on how
Yeah.
far you are. As the further you are, which is what we would use in these situations, the spread would be very wide. It would be huge.
Okay. Anything else for the police department? budget?
Uniform didn't help you tonight, did it?
just have a-
Holy
No,
moly.
nowadays it doesn't. It's
Yeah, oh,
actually
right,
worse.
That's right.
I got a quick question.
We get beat up everywhere.
No problem. Just a quick question. I just hear it from people asking, you know, we're neighborly, it's Tega K, and this is probably something that's over my head, and any of you could probably answer it. But as far as, I know, you know, there's a new police station in the future at some point. That's something you guys are looking at. Is it still gonna be unmanned when you pick up the phone, you're talking to York County? Just because I hear real often, like, hey, you know, why can't we walk into the police station and talk to a police officer to, you know, say hello? And I understand there may be some safety issues there. It's just I guess a question from what I have no idea why it's not
Can I answer
Betty
that?
answering the phone or
The only
saying hello
answer-
or welcome, come on in. You know,
Welcome
I
to
just don't know.
Mayberry.
It was
Welcome
just
to
something I wanted to
Mayberry.
ask.
The answer to that, prior to my arrival, is there was a dispatch center here, so you could reach out and touch somebody. But since then, dispatch has been moved to York County, which the personnel went to 911. The only way that you would have someone there 24/7 is you would have to staff 2 additional personnel so they could be there all nights, 12-hour shifts. So if from an admin, we could do ticket entry, it could be done, but that's what we're moving towards. The kiosk is, of course, reaching out and touching somebody. I would rather do that all day long. But the kiosk will take some of that and help the public as far as getting information quicker.
We switched to the York County EOC system for the 911 calls because, and I encourage you to go down there and see that. It's pretty amazing. You call into 911, I'm picking up the phone, and while I'm talking to you on the phone and I'm repeating your information, Dottie is listening in and she's getting all the information and funneling it to a police officer or EMS or fire. As I'm talking to you, trying to calm you down and get your information, she's already dispatched somebody. So it works out really well. I was really impressed when I went down there to see it, and again, I'm sure the chief could set up a tour of the place for you. It's really, it's a neat place. You know, it helped me with that whole 911 situation.
And if I recall, when this happened a couple of years ago, the actual response time decreased.
That's correct.
So that was very
Yeah,
important.
it definitely sounds much more efficient. I just, you know,
Yeah.
that was,
No,
I just
no,
had
I
that
get
question.
the same
Why
question.
can't we walk in and shake
I
somebody's hand
hear
and
it
say
all.
hello?
I think,
It-
yeah, as we go through this, and there is funds in this capital outlay, as part of the request, to do a study, during this coming year as far as what would need to be done at the current police station, or do we need to look at, or what would it be brand new? As far as if we need to do it in a different spot, both from an accreditation and an efficiency standpoint. But that's obviously something that, we wouldn't even have the room right now to put somebody to walk in to PD and say, hey, how are you? As, Joe's citizen. But, as we look to prepare that law enforcement center, the police station for the future, for the long term, absolutely something that could be taken in as far as from a staffing standpoint. Yeah, almost like, the old school desk sergeants, you walk in, hey, there's somebody here, how you doing, good to see you, what can I help you with?
Now, even at limited hours.
Right.
I know you have the initiative to get out and meet and shake hands and talk to kids and So, you know, I don't know. I just
I
figured I'd
agree
ask
with
that
you.
question.
I agree with you. I mean, I
Well,
think if-
daylight hours during, 9 to 5, 8 to 4, whatever, we've got somebody in the office, correct?
Yes, sir.
So someone could walk in there during the day and knock on the window, because the front door's open, correct?
Yes.
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 So Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, 8 to 5,
They're
there's
reading.
somebody on the other side of the glass.
They reach out and touch
Yeah.
somebody
Yeah.
through those times.
Okay. Fire.
Thank you.
Oh, you,
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Questions on,
Can't these guys leave
if I,
Joey and?
if, we hadn't got to
Say
Joey yet. He's
Oh.
next. From a fire standpoint, just real quick, you see that there is a reduction on the volunteer side, and you see some new line items, some ups on the other sides. This is through, we're hopefully, well, yeah, in August, at your August 15th meeting, we'll be bringing you an updated long-term fire services agreement with the volunteers, along with a lease of the city for that building. We've never had a lease with that building. Basically, the volunteers, they want a long-term commitment from the city to make sure that we're still, staffing folks in that. Basically, we're taking over the building and all that goes with it. They're still own the building, but our folks are there 24/7. The volunteers come and go, but we're driving their trucks. We're in their building, so it's taking out of what we were contributing to them for them to pay for those expenses. We're just bringing them on, putting them in our line items, and handling that portion. Still making a contribution to them based on their budgetary request for each year. And out of that, they're paying their insurance premiums, as well as developing a recruitment and retention plan for the volunteers they have, as well as new volunteers. So that's just kind of the fire department in a budget in a nutshell. So any questions, I'm sure Chief Samansky would be happy to try to answer.
Well, I was a little concerned about the boat for river rescue.
That's 2 or 3 years old.
Exactly. And that's why I was concerned about it, because it's a 30% increase this year in calls, but we're unable to, I don't even know why they're going down there, to be honest, if they can't get on the water.
We are currently, and will be through the coming fiscal year, come on, Scott.
Without having a boat,
Going to
I
be
don't
working
know.
on swift water rescues. And in this current budget, it does envision us being able to get a small John boat. Would not assist us out on the lake, but we haven't had a boat on the lake in a year. The volunteers still have a boat. I believe it's actually at one of the volunteers' homes right now. They're trying to repair it, the big fireboat that we have on the lake. But as far as for the river, I mean, it's, there below the dam. It is within our territory. We will get dispatched to it. York County's folks are getting dispatched to it. But Chief, I believe you did say that if this is approved, we should be able to get a John boat type, that would allow us to get further out than just trying to make rescues from the shoreline.
We also plan, as you know, we're gonna buy a new fire truck. Spent the last 3-4 months looking at it. And I did discuss, since we have a budget of $400,000 for the fire truck, if we can save and get the fire truck under budget, we could move our CIP up a little bit. I did request that from Charlie, and he was agreeable to it, as long as council was. Our biggest thing is we've had 6 drownings on the lake this year, 4 in York County. It kind of hurts when someone calls you for service. EOC calls me on my cell phone direct and asks me if our boat's in service. I have to say no. It's a tough thing. And then when we went down, they had the big kayaking thing. And I suggest anybody that's in this room go down there on the weekends. And my wife and I drove down there. She's never seen the dam. So I took her to see the dam, and there was no
Hot date.
parking. Huh?
Hot date.
You bet. And there's parking on both sides of the road, and there was 4 outfitters down there with average 6 to 8, 12 kayaks. And they were gone. They were in the water. The next day I went down there and just see how it is during the week. And Rock Hill Park and Rec was down there with 21 kayaks. So, I mean, it's phenomenal, how much is getting put on, and with the pump house opening up that restaurant, they had a thing, and they had sponsored some kayaking, bring your kayak and float down the river. Well, that night, we got a call at 10 o'clock from the imbibers. There were 7 of them stuck in the middle of the lake, or middle of the river. And all I can do right now is drive down there, wait 30, 45 minutes, an hour for the for the York County Swiftwater team to come and help direct and communicate, and that's about it. We've got some lines we can throw out there, run down the river. It's close, we can get a line out, but that's about it. So with Catawba Park coming on, that's why we put the boat in.
This year.
Yeah, this
So, so the truck lease, is this the last payment on the truck lease?
The truck lease is 17-18 budget. We have 2 more payments, this payment and 17-18 budget.
So if we can move the boat up, great. We could save money on buying a new truck, great. Try to keep the budget where it's at, but we definitely, Charlie and I talked to him. I'm going now next week to look at a couple trucks in Daytona. Probably save average of 50, 60,000. And we'll get another couple % for paying cash. And then,
That may free up room to move the boat side of things up a lot sooner.
and then I've got another one in Louisiana, brand new truck off the line. It's a demo, they're driving it around.
Ryan's gonna take you on that trip. Show you the good spots.
Show you where to go.
Can we get chips put in their shoulders so we know where they are? Okay.
How many firemen do you have going to the Swiftwater training?
Right now, we have 3 guys, 4 that have already taken it, and we have 3 more signed up.
Thank
So that'd be 50% of our crew, and we've got 2 EMTs full-time that work for us, 1 that's in class right now, 3, 4 part-time guys that are EMT. Hopefully, we'll hire one of those guys to be full-time. We need 6. We can do it with 5, but we need 6 for in case one guy's sick.
Yep.
We can run 24/7 then.
Awesome. Thanks, Chief.
Any other questions on fire?
Probably not. Good. Thanks, Jen.
Parks and Recreation. Come on up, Joey. As I mentioned before, it does envision one new hire. That would be a January hire date after the Christmas holidays. It does have resurfacing of 4 tennis courts plus Heron Harbor, the playground equipment. The uptick on the park maintenance, again, is the stuff at Pitcairn with the ramp getting down to the docks as well as fixing the shoreline. So at this point, we'll take, glad to try to answer any questions you may have on Parks and Rec.
So on the recreational equipment, how many soccer balls are you buying?
12.
Just kidding.
Regarding the park benches, do you anticipate any PARD funding becoming available?
There's none. We've already been notified by the state. There's none available. I will say that we just had recently 2 young folks did some community service work for us and freshened up the wooden benches that we still have remaining. They're not done yet, but I think that, Joey, where have they done?
In regards to part, I actually got an email that with allocations for that will be available potentially.
Really?
So
Really?
yeah,
How much?
Means everybody didn't spend their money, because the letter I got said 0 for the county.
really. Email I just got, it wasn't much. So
For the county.
I'm sorry for even bringing it up. So in regards to the park benches, currently we have Windjammer, Trailhead, and Lookout knocked out some of our bigger parks, and they're working their way towards Rundy and some of the smaller parks as they go through. So slowly but surely, they're making progress on the project, and it's made a big difference with them. But you're limited on what you can do with older benches. So.
What?
And I have had a lot of people, I had actually talked about the open air gym. I've had a lot of residents ask me for something like that, which is why I suggested, and I got a quote on it, but.
Right.
Is that something, I mean, obviously I don't speak to the majority of
Right.
residents, but these were all ages, so I don't know what you're getting feedback on. And I know basketball gym was included in like the request for like the comp plan portion, but obviously this is an open air gym. It's not enclosed,
Right.
so.
We have had one resident, probably within the last year, make a request for that and showed us an example of one that I believe is at the reserve, if I'm not mistaken. But outside of that request, I've not received a request in regards to that.
Okay.
Jen, you good? David?
Good.
Dottie? Ryan?
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joey.
Thanks, Joey.
Keep those soccer balls inflated.
We'll get a couple of baseballs and, non-departmental, again, first line item you can see is flags. We moved that down from municipal council. The city's safety employee program, your bonds, we don't budget, we don't put money in for the C-Fund stuff, until we actually get the award, spend the money. Then we put the expense in, and then as we get reimbursed, show the revenue on the revenue end. You've got your golf and community center. That's, again, repairs and maintenance to the facilities here. Those are some of your bigger ones. Now, I would like to talk briefly on your trash recycle service. Had a conversation with Signature Waste. If council is on board, he has asked for he's got one more year, 16-17 would be the final year of his contract, has asked for a 5-year extension, and would start October 1, taking your rate from $15.41 to $14.41, reducing by $1 per customer per month, which that number it does reflect here in that $670,000 request. Basically, it reduced that line item by about $45,000.
What was the length of the current contract?
It was 5 year. No, it was initial was 5, and then he had renewal periods. I believe he's in his 8th year at this point.
So, is he looking for he wants another 5 years?
He has requested another 5 years. Yes,
Doesn't
ma'am.
that have to be don't we have to
Council
compete
could
that?
amend the existing agreement to add those years on, or we could go into next year and put it out for bid.
I mean, I'm not suggesting we don't want Signature Waste.
Right.
I'm personally pretty pleased with them, and I think the city is. But,
Yes.
I mean, I'm just concerned about procurement regulations.
From a procurement standpoint, you would be fine. You have the ability to amend the end date of the existing contract and push that out.
Can you
or
only do
can
that
bid it
one
out.
time?
No, ma'am.
Interesting.
Does all the other things stay the same with how much, the charge for gas or something?
Everything
it
else
do?
within the contract would be the same, which gives him the opportunity, which I think he's done once, based on the national fuel index. Once it reaches a certain percentage, I'm sorry, I don't have the contract with me here.
What I'm
but-
saying, he's not trying to change any of that. That's all staying
No,
the
sir.
same.
All
He
that,
just
all
wants
that
to
stays.
extend it by 5 years.
He just wants to extend it by
And he
5
wants to-
years, and he would
$5
reduce.
per-
But he wants to
reduce
do
the
that
rate.
now. He doesn't even want to wait till his contract's up. He just
Correct.
wants to start that now. So in effect, it would,
He would still have next year, and then it would be the 5
5
years
after
would
that.
go after that, and he would,
I
but he
see.
would start the reduction on the rate
Now.
October, correct.
I mean,
can we do that now?
it's guaranteed 5 more years for him.
Can we vote to do that now?
I need to bring you the,
I think I'd like to see what the contract looks like.
Yeah,
You know,
I'm bringing it to you at your August 15th meeting without a problem.
yeah, like-
Anytime we can save $1, like you said.
Any other questions on departmental?
Nope.
Is this where the sidewalks are? Okay.
They're not in here, but this is
Right,
where
they'd
it would
be
go
discussed.
if council wants to do
No,
it.
Jen.
I don't know, is this, I think C-Fund, is that where you had required some funds years ago for the sidewalk? The one near Turner?
No, that was,
What was that from?
that was Obama stimulus money,
That was an
Oh,
ARA
please.
grant.
so we were taxed.
Okay.
The,
I mean, I don't know where to come up with the money. I just
Reinvestment and
know there's so many
Recovery
people who
React.
want sidewalks. And
the biggest issue, if we're talking Windjammer, Molokai Point Clear, those projects, yeah, or in traditional TKK where there are none, biggest problem that we're gonna run into is everybody's property corners come out to the edge of the asphalt. In some cases, they go out into the asphalt. We would have to either acquire right-of-way or easements from 100% of the people on whichever side of the street that the sidewalk was on. I don't know that that would even be attainable. You would have sidewalk for 4 houses here, and then 3 houses there, and 2 houses back to this side. Getting 100% of the people on one side of the street or the other to agree to
yeah,
put a 5-foot wide sidewalk, yeah,
And lose their driveway.
Didn't we have a problem putting that sidewalk in
oh, yes.
with all the neighbors that didn't want us to even put? That's why it doesn't continue all the way down to Callaway. Am I
Well,
correct?
that's why it doesn't make it past water trace.
right.
Right.
'Cause we
because
couldn't
one
get
of
to
the
Seven
neighbors
Coves.
Yeah,
would not allow us to go.
We
so-
wouldn't have an issue from Seven Coves to Callaway because that's city property.
Right.
And DOT right-of-way. So, but in between Seven Coves and Water Trace, DOT would have to get outside of the right-of-way in constructing that sidewalk, and the
Well, that
folks would not give
particular-
it.
Doesn't he have more screening now? So it's been a number of years for the protection
about
of
the
his
same.
pool visibility, or
It's about the same.
same?
You figure his neighbor could talk to him a little bit.
One would think,
Saying, one would
you
think.
know.
They're traveling out of town on vacation tonight.
Any other questions? Just want to remind everybody of the service tomorrow night up at the Living Memorial Gardens for our police, fire, and EMS,
Yeah.
which was pretty neat that Lakeshore Christian Fellowship jumped on that opportunity to assist us with that, and invite everyone to attend. It's it's good to get together and support our public safety folks, especially today. With that, I'll let Charlie say one more thing.
Sorry. I will be out of the office next week, and try to squeeze a vacation in before summer ends. Katie and everybody will still be here. I don't anticipate any issues, but if there's a delay in my responses, that is why. So did want to make sure council was aware of that, and.
You said you were going to be working from the beach. You didn't say you were going.
I don't
on
think that's been
vacation.
a seconded.
So that's what I just said. I'm going to be working from the beach. And the August 1st special city council meeting, we make sure that everybody's got that on their schedules.
With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn.
Motion by Dottie Hurst. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ryan Richard. Any other questions, demonstrations, or manifestations of violence? Hearing none. We're adjourned. Call the vote. Sorry. Voted.